Resident Evil 5, a game that I've played far more than I'd like to admit, but it defined a very specific time in my childhood when it came out way back in 2009. The graphics, the horror, the hot damn! So many things about this game floods me with memories from times when Twitter wasn't a complete cesspool and YouTube was a free-for-all. That being said, Resident Evil 5 is not the most popular game in the series, and it hasn't aged as well as some others we all grew up playing, but that's not to say it's something I wouldn't recommend checking out. In this video, I will be exploring its gameplay, weapons, features, and much more. But before I break things down, let's start from the beginning. Resident Evil, as a franchise, has a ton of lore that I'm not going to preface, but 5 specifically begins in unspecified Africa, where the absolute beefcake Chris Redfield has been called to investigate some shit. Upon arrival, he's greeted by the caked up Sheva Alomar, a local who is part of the same organization as Chris, the BSAA, or Big Sus Auditing Association. He's in the American branch, and she's in the West African branch. The story begins by scoping out Kijuju, or what I like to call the Wuhan of Africa, where a local butcher who gets butchered lets you know that Ouroboros, a new bioweapon, isn't just a rumor, and that a man named Irving is your current lead towards finding some answers. Fast forward to the fillet, where you encounter the first real swarm of zombies, and if you're not smart about it, you're royally fucked. Basically, push these shelves in front of the window, go outside through this door, hide in this corner, and try to go for headshots. But wait. Hold on a sec. No, you aren't saying things, because there's infinite ammo for nearly every weapon in this game. To unlock infinite ammo, you have to beat the game, fully upgrade any weapon, then go to the bonus features menu and purchase infinite ammo with exchange points, which are earned based off your performance in each section of the game. The first weapon in each category fully upgraded will unlock a secret weapon, and 2 of these are specific to either Chris or Sheva. You'll also find BSAA emblems hidden throughout the game to unlock additional goodies. We'll cover other bonus features in a bit. Continuing the story, you massacre every local in sight while also being assisted by other agents. This leads to your first real encounter with Ouroboros, but Chris and Sheva are too dense to realize it. Shortly after, Chopper goes, so you gotta rush over to check on the boys, leading to the most spectacularly cheesy rescue imaginable. And now it's finally time to introduce a new character, Josh. Josh is the man. He saves your asses a plethora of times in your search for Irving, and he taught Sheva everything she needs to know, so you can trust him. But despite this reunion, both parties agree to split up, so you end up fighting through some mines, run into Irving and Beak Lady, get jumped by a bat, gun down some foreigners casually driving by because their country has oil reserves, fight Ashy Shrek, and then end up in some marshlands outside of an oil field. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this next part. These tribes are fucked, and the events that transpired is pretty tragic, but you can only learn about this through typical horror game fashion. Random note. For the most part, however, the story isn't special enough for notes to really be worth your time. After the villages, Irving struts away, Josh saves your ass, Beak Lady vroom vrooms, and you eventually catch up to Big Man. But Big Man has big balls, and decides to take his EpiPen. No bueno. This leads to a kaiju battle, where you can use conveniently placed items to gun him down in arcade fashion, or one-shot him with an RPG when he opens his mouth. Oh. You want this? Then beat the game in under 5 hours, scrub. Irving then spills the beans, causing the Oreo to venture towards a cave. This cave is essentially an Australian role-playing server with a ton of gold and jewels. So you roll in colonizer style, wipe out the local population, and dodge concentrated beams of light like the ants we all brutally murdered as a child. Before we continue, it's important to mention that part of Chris's motivation to move forward is a lead that his former partner, Jill Valentine, could still be alive. How she has survived this, I have no idea, but just keep it in mind. Moving on, this area's 4D chess puzzles can take some time at first, but it's really not that difficult. Let's fast forward to the anime Flowers of Death, which are the origin of the progenitor virus, the virus currently affecting most of the enemies you encounter. Next, you discover that corporations are bad, get jumped by skinless Marvel fans, end up fighting Mr. Krabs' dad, realize that Jill isn't inside the pod, no shit, and then head into the missile facility. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering why I haven't mentioned this bitch yet, so here she is. Skipping forward, we meet Exeligione, or watered down Dimitrescu, who uses Earthworm Jim 2.0 to try and kill you. It doesn't work, because plot armor, so you fight on until you finally meet Albert Wesker and Jill. Chris finally has some neuron activation, and you're given 7 minutes to play with him. Once he gets bored, you learn that Jill is being controlled by some chest implant, which would make a lot more sense if it was on her head. Anyway, you then rip it out like a stubborn dingleberry, and she returns to normal. We'll come back to this scene later, but she basically tells you to stop Wesker from spreading Ouroboros, the bioweapon that turns people into monsters. So you do. Of course you do. You hop on this ship, fight your way through hordes of fuck shit, all the way up until Sugar Tits turns into the big gulp version of the monster she used to end you earlier. When you finally fight her, a conveniently placed satellite laser, or an RPG, can be used to end her life. Makes sense, I guess? One impossible round of enemies later brings you back to wannabe Keanu, where finally, you can use your RPG and a drug overdose to send him running. A few button mashes later and you fight in a volcano? As much sense as this makes, all I care is that Chris somehow moves a motherfucking boulder by pushing and punching it. This is single-handedly one of the most over-the-top scenes in any piece of media I've ever seen. Doing the math, this thing could weigh anywhere from 20 to 35 tons. What? Anyway, fuck this fight and fuck Wesker. The end. Now that that's over, I'm going to briefly cover some more features. If you go here and click here, you'll notice some bonus content that back in the day was paid DLC. These days, you can buy everything in one cheap bundle, but basically, you can play through the story where Chris and Jill infiltrated the Spencer estate and confronted Wesker. This is where they should have died, but somehow didn't. As boring as this is, it genuinely feels like a homage to older Resident Evil titles, so I have to give it some credit for that. Another storyline you can explore is how Jill escaped after you left her alone. Turns out, Riz Lord showed up and they fought their way through the docks to get the helicopter you see at the end of the game. This is actually pretty fun, but if you're not experienced, it's pretty damn hard. There are also 2 other additional game modes that are basically a time attack or a competition against other players. Versus gets extremely toxic, but people still play it. You can buy Versus characters with exchange points here, but special weapons are actually picked up throughout the map to fuck with each other and steal their points. The Mercenaries is decent as well, and if you pick a character with infinite ammo, then it makes it that much easier. So to finish up, if you can get past all the wonky controls, strange facial animations, and cheesy dialogue, this game has a lot to offer, even in terms of replayability. With all that being said, if you like videos like this and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe for more in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.